So, I'm Shilot. I'm a climate activist from South Africa, and today I'm gonna be with Azima Zaidi. She's a social inclusion officer at the United Nations Development Program, and she also graduated from the National University of Modern Languages with a degree in peace and inclusion. So she loves using her skills in terms of to actually include young people and also women to be involved in policy making, because those are some of the things that are important in dealing with the global issues. So I'm gonna let you, Azima, take it away and introduce what you're gonna be talking about today.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I would begin by being very grateful to you for the lovely introduction, and of course to the Festival for Change team for making me one of the leading speakers for this session. And definitely this topic that I will be discussing today, that is the need for inclusion in policy design, is something which is very close to my heart. And I like to call it from policy to action, which is that it has been decades that we have been talking about, how there is a need for inclusion, and in every context and in every, in every state of the world. But now I think is the time that we actually do something about it and transform our actions, and really think what needs to be done and fill those gaps. So again, thank you so much for having me here. I feel that, striving for a world that is just and equitable and inclusive, it has been a need for a long period of time now, and it is one of the commitments of the international community. Working at the United Nations in Pakistan, I feel that this very notion lies at the heart of the 2030 agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals. It talks about, achieving equality. It talks about leaving no one behind, and all of those things, and inclusion. So I feel that again, this is the time that we actually really do something about it. Before I started working here, I did a lot of internships as well with different organizations and agencies. And all the different seminars that I attended, I was one of the speakers there as well. And I always used to speak about the need for inclusion, because I was a student back then, and I felt, that the challenges that I'm facing are definitely going to be the challenges that the other marginalized youth groups are facing, particularly the differently able youth in Pakistan. So I really wanted to mainstream those ideas and those topics and make sure that the people were well aware about what was going on and what were the challenges and how is it that we can as a community address them. But despite all those references and the continued efforts, I feel that there are gaps that still needs to be filled, and these disparities need to be reduced as a priority. So what I did was I have been thinking about what is the cycle that we can implement, or what are the things that we can do, especially as far as the policy design is concerned and the implementation of it is concerned. So I came up with a two-pronged approach, which is I like to call it the two E's. It is educate and empower. So when you talk about education, I basically mean there has to be realization and there has to be awareness raising. Okay, what is it that inclusion is? What are the challenges, associated challenges, and how is it that we can address the root causes of it? So in one of the talks I was participating in earlier, we talked about the root causes of exclusion. Particularly in the context of differently abled youth in Pakistan. There are people with disabilities, and there are different types of disabilities. There are people who are physically disabled, and then there are people who are, visually impaired, and people with hearing disabilities. So how is it that we can, really cater to all of their needs in an umbrella and really see what that can be done from here onwards? So the how, the question that how can we do it could be that, for instance, we can, because there's not just one particular area that is affected. When you talk about disability and inclusivity, there are different phases and different sectors of the society that are involved, socioeconomic, political, and legal, all of those things. So I think we can address the how by saying, for instance, guaranteeing food security and ensuring that there is quality of health and education facilities for the marginalized segments. And of course, the last but not the least, the climate change, addressing climate change, because all of the population is affected by it. But of course, we cannot forget the marginalized youth who are affected by it and who are not as vocal as the other segments of the population are. So it is important that we understand it and that we bring it to the mainstream. So that is the education part, and the other is empowerment. Also, very important to my discussion for today. By empowerment, what I mean is, like you've mentioned in the introduction as well, that it is very important that the marginalized youth segments, particularly the young women and girls, they need to be empowered. They need to know what is the power of their voice. They need to be mainstreamed by social media. Social media is so vast nowadays, particularly owing to the COVID times that we've all been sitting at home, and social media is the only tool that we are using in order to, you know, get our voices across different. There are no barriers nowadays. There's so many people hearing me and looking at me through, live streaming on YouTube and other platforms. So this is something which we need to bring it out there for people. For instance, in the remote areas of Pakistan, people are not really aware of the technologies. Particularly if I talk about the people with disabilities, they do not have a lot of access to technology, and there's not enough Wi-Fi. So, things like that. So, they were, I mean, sharing from my own example, there were a few people in my community who came up to me and they said that, we are adversely affected by COVID because we were not aware of what COVID is, and how is it that we can stay away from it or do any remedies for it and all of that. So one of the reasons for that is that the information is not accessible to people with disabilities. So I feel like when we bring these people into the policy table and really bring their voices ahead, that is the only way that we can empower them. And truly, it is going to be, an important aspect for the community as well, because we're all going to be, joining hands and really working for a common cause. So, if I talk about my work at the United Nations, so we recently, our partnership with the Higher Education Commission in Pakistan, so we launched the e-courses on two very important policies of the HEC. One was for the disabled youth, the students who are in the educational institutions in Pakistan, and the other e-course was for the students on the anti-sexual harassment. So again, the idea is to really bring all of these segments together. And we also did a lot of projects on women, peace, and security. And we are very excited to, really take the same principles forward as we move towards making or coming up with new proposals and projects for the upcoming years. So again, I could talk so much about this topic, but I feel that now is the time that we actually do something about it. So yes, this is all I have for my talk today, and over to you, Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saidi. You touched so many aspects and different components of the crisis we are looking at, like climate change, food insecurity, and awareness and empowerment for people and children and learners in rural communities. For example, you spoke of how can we address the how of inclusion in these problems, and you spoke of food insecurity. It's one of the things that we can use to make sure that people are included in this problems, in terms of problem solving. So I see there's so many young people out there who are actually doing their work when it comes to environmental problems, in terms of solving environmental problems like climate change, climate mitigation, environmental restoration or ecological restoration. So what is it that young people need to do to be involved in the policy making decisions? Because they are doing the work, the groundwork, but still they're not involved. They don't have a voice at the decision making tables, and that's also one aspect that's missing in, in this problem solving, that, in the society, that young people are not involved enough, and people,
Mm.
the marginal communities, are also not involved enough. They're not included, and their voices are not amplified enough. So what is it that, people need to do, or young people need to do, to be included in the policy making processes?
Thank you, Charlotte, for the question. I completely agree that it's not like, if I talk particularly in the context of Pakistan, it is not that our youth are not passionate enough or that they do not understand the challenges or anything of that sort. I feel that what the gap that remains is that they really need to, there has to be a platform, whether it is, an initiative of the government or any of the civil society organizations. They really need to come together, because you see, it is a very common example that we are all aware of, is that you can never achieve something when you're doing it alone. Everybody has to come in together. And when you talk about inclusion, it is not just the differently abled youth or the transgender community or the ethnic minority groups who are coming together and forming a group. Everybody has to, even the non-differently abled youth have to come on board, because if they are not aware of who we are and what our challenges are, and all of those things, so it is never going to be a unified approach. So being there together is very essential. We need to come up with a platform, establish a platform where we all can come together and really work, as a unified body. And the other thing is, how do we keep that body sustainable? That is also very important. And the only way to do that is, again, like I said in my talk as well, that it's not like the people are not aware of it. I have been doing a lot of talks on this topic, but then people tend to forget about the issues. Even if, I have done so many interviews on TV and on social media, people just, flip the channels. They would hear me for a while and then they would forget about it. So the only way to make it more sustainable is if you are serious about it. You need to really stay focused and really keep yourself going. So in my opinion, that is the only way in which we can do something, not being distracted and really staying focused.
Penelope is asking a question that, can you provide some of the examples of projects you have helped to create for ensuring peace and security?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much, Penelope, for the question. So basically, as far as peace and security is concerned, so last year, sorry, I thought I heard
You can
someone.
go on.
Okay. So for as far as the peace and security is concerned, so last year we did a couple of projects that were on ground, and basically what we do is we provide trainings to young women who are university students in the remote areas of Pakistan, in Gilgit and in the northern areas. And what we do is that, of course, like during the COVID times, we had to keep it was a challenge. We had to keep the trainings virtual, and even that was, a little difficult at times because the people over there do not have access to internet. But we somehow figured it out, and there are internet cafes and all of those things. So there were students who were able to join in, and the objective of those trainings was to tell them or to inform those people. Again, my point on awareness raising. So our objective was that the training should be participatory of as many women as possible of the remote areas in Pakistan. And we talked to them about peace and security. We talked to them about what their rights are, different challenges that they spoke of during the training, and we made sure that we address them in and that not in that project, but even in our upcoming projects. And then later on, we did a few webinars on that as well. So we really made sure we had speakers who joined us in the webinar, and they spoke of their success stories, and a lot of the participants could resonate to those, to those challenges and those stories, and they did learn a lot. And what we do is that once we train all these people, we do give them funding as well if there are certain people who wish to, introduce any social action projects in their communities, so that if there's anything that they seem is a challenge, and if they have any solutions for it, so they should not stay back, and they should really go for it. And so our objective by the end of the day is really to empower them through trainings and through providing them with funding and anything of that sort which they feel is important to be addressed in the community.
Wow, that's so profound, the work that you're doing. And since you mentioned funding in terms of your trainings that you guys provide in your work, I was reading a research paper earlier done by Nicholas Stevenson from the University of Cape Town. He was actually writing on how the lack of climate literacy is also blocking the progress of climate action and other environmental action or policy inclusion in these areas. So how do you think that climate literacy need to be tailored from actually only just science to also storytelling that will enable other people, like ordinary people in the communities or rural communities where they don't have like network connectivity, for them to also be involved, that will also transcend to policy making, inclusion, and peace and security?
Yes, thank you for the question. Again, like I said, that not having access to internet has always been a challenge, especially in the COVID times. This is what we saw, and even now. So I think that the only way that we can bridge that is if we, like I said in my previous talk as well, that bringing them to the decision making table. See, they know what it is. They are aware of what the challenges are when it comes to inclusion and climate change. What are the adverse effects of climate change? But what holds them back is that they do not have a platform. So we need to provide them with a platform. Like I, at one of the in one of these seminars, I talked about having youth parliaments. So if we have, such an area or such a forum where people can actually get together and they can talk about these things, so this can, in my opinion, this can really, take new heights, and this can really, bring in more people from different disciplines. We can have researchers, we can have writers, we can have social activists, and they can already sit and think that what are the gaps, what are the things that we need to do, and and this is also going to help the people who do not have Wi-Fi access to really come and speak together, and just really act as a unified body.
That is really great. I say that the United Nations has programs for young people like Yungo, and also the UNEP children and young people's major group, which also facilitates policy making, like which actually involves drafting of statements and declarations from young people to be sent to the United Nations chief. So how do we actually bring these programs to the wider community? Because also you spoke of social media and also connectivity issues, but we need to find strategies and methods to take these programs to the community, so that young people do get involved in this uh programs, which also tailor their understanding and also involvement in the decision making tables. So how do you think we should provide these programs or lend them to the communities, in the wider open societies where people can actually access without any hindrances?
That is a very good question, and I feel that this particular question needs to be addressed at depth, and I can provide my opinion on it. But of course, like, the more deep we go into it, like, the more opinions that we get, the better, because I'm sure that people who are actually sitting at the decision making tables would be able, because you see, by the end of the day, there's so many things that we talk about, but it is really up to the implementation at this point. Again, there are challenges with Wi-Fi, and there are things, there are connectivity issues now. Slowly and gradually, as we are coming out of the COVID times, things are getting better. We think that, and we can only hope that they are going to continue to be better. So I think that if we really want to include as many youth as possible in the decision-making tables, regardless of whatever challenge or issue or topic it is that we are tackling, so I think the best way to do that is, again, I'm going to say the same thing, that really, if just see what are the best possible solutions. I mean, if we can gather them online, or if, for instance, connectivity issues is an issue, then when we can have them gather in person. So I think it really comes down to what we need to do and how is it that it is going to best work out for any one of us. Because in our previous trainings, when we saw that, people were not very comfortable coming online and they were having issues and all that, so what we did was that we gave them an opportunity. I mean, for the university students, we then, what we did was we shifted our agenda to holding of those trainings in the universities, so that they are not, they're not left behind, and then they're able to, and that everything goes by as per the schedule. So again, I would say the same thing, that this question is very important, and I would love to, take this question forward to the decision makers and to the higher authorities of these organizations, so that we can really think what could be the best possible options.
That's so great. That would be amazing to do. And also, just to kind of like, take talk a little bit about COP26. I'm not sure if you were involved or you were there in Glasgow to attend COP26, but as you have seen, there was a lack of representation, especially of the people that are actually living on the front lines of, the climate consequences, like in the MENA region, which is the north, and I forgot what the region is. I just know it as the MENA region, which is actually facing the brunt of climate crisis and also these extreme heat waves. So, what do you think should be done in the following COP26 conferences to ensure that all people that are affected, or just to make sure that there's equal representation? What should be done in the following COP26? Because this one was really a slap in the face for people living these consequences.
Yes, I completely agree that, I mean, for the first part of your question, I was not in Glasgow. I was in Pakistan, but I would definitely love to participate that next year in person. And definitely that a lot of people were not represented there who are actually, like you mentioned, are affected by this, are affected by the consequences of climate change. So I think that for next time that we have COP, it is very important that you really bring in those people, so that at least their challenges are highlighted. Because if we continue to exclude them, then there is no point of holding these large scale conferences and talks, because we are not really getting much out of it. So I think what we can do is, based of what we have done in our previous projects as well, that we did, we made a portal online. We have done various projects where we had to build like youth websites, where we have different questions and different areas of things that we are discussing. And what we do is we have those different segments of the young people who come, and then they would record their responses. So we would have different questions, like, of course it would depend on what is it that we are doing, but maybe we can have a survey, an online survey. We can have questions, and then we can have people come and really record their responses as to what is it that they want, what are the challenges and how is it that they would want them to be resolved. So particularly owing to the climate change. It all comes down to awareness raising, Charlotte, at this point, because a lot of people did not even know that COP is happening, and especially the people who are affected did not know about this. So when they do not even know about this, how is it that we can involve them? So we really need to get the information across through social media, because I feel that social media is so strong nowadays. COVID has taught us so much. Again, the challenges are always there. I don't think we're ever going to be achieving a utopian society where there are absolutely no disadvantages. There are always going to be issues that we would want to tackle, but having a smart approach towards it is very important. So I would say that utilize all the options that we have got. Social media is very vast. We can use it. We can, if there are connectivity issues, we would have to think like-mindedly. All of you, the team for this festival for change, you guys are so diligent. You've brought all of us together. So I'm sure that if we actually, bring a team, and regardless of the geographical locations, regardless of who we are, really just think about what is it that we can do. And I'm sure that we would be able to address these minute issues of connectivity and really bring a platform to life in where we can talk about COP, and we can talk about, have all those different representations on board and see what are the challenges that you face and how do you think could be some of the concrete actions in which we could address them. So I would love to be, if we ever bring this idea to life, I think I would be, one of the biggest participants for it. So this is what I have in mind, and I'm sure that as we take a deep dive into this, we can, come up with more options.
Wow, thank you for your input. I really love the idea of, having a smart having smart strategies to tackle our global issues, because, it is possible that we may not, achieve the utopian society, but it is important that we do have like smart strategies and solutions implemented that are also inclusive, that benefit everyone in the society. So also looking at the time, Azima, because we're coming to the end of our session, I would like to ask you, what will be your message to the people that are watching this live now, and also to the people that are still going to watch the recording? And if also you can also tell people, or drop in some of the resources or links to the sites where they can actually access your work, and also other work related sources that you are affiliated with, for them to be also aware of what you're doing and get involved.
Definitely, I would do that, Shalor. That is a great recommendation. Thank you so much for that. And I think the more people we have on board for these initiatives, the better. And I think the message I have for everybody watching is that thank you for being here, first of all. And I just feel so honored being, and talking at these platforms, because I think that it is very important to really raise these issues and talk about all of, the ideas. And because if we are talking about something today, it means that we are conscious of the fact that, these are something worth talking about. And when we talk about them today, we do come up with solutions in near future. And I did get a chance to, view some of the talks of the previous speakers, and all of the different ideas that you guys have added. It has been a great initiative. Thank you so much for that. And I would say that please do not lose hope. We are all, human beings. We make mistakes, but by the end of the day, it is our will and our commitment and our dedication towards our work that is very important, and that matters the most. And also that challenges are always going to come by. Owing from my personal experience, I have faced many challenges, but it is your mind, it is your determination that keeps you going, and you should never lose hope in life. People have done wonders, and I don't think any one of us is any less than any other person. We are all very gifted by God. We're all very strong inside and out. So never, underestimate yourself. Just be ready to, tackle all those challenges. Be ready, whether it's your professional capacity or your personal life. It is very important to be strong minded, and especially to the young people, you have a long life ahead of you. So like I used to, before I started working at the UN, I always used to say that I want to work for the UN, I want to work for the UN. I kept saying that, I kept praying to God that I really want to work for an organization that has the same vision as me. But I never really thought that they would come. And now that I reflect back, I just feel so surprised that when you have the will and the determination, there are absolutely no hindrances. You just really need to believe in yourself. So I'm going to leave everybody in that positive thought. And once again, everybody, thank you for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Azima. Don't forget to drop in the links on the comment section for the viewers. And thank you, everyone. We have come to the end of our session with Azima Zaidi on trust in practice for policy inclusion. As you have heard her speaking, do not lose hope, and in holding that hope, make sure that you find action, you start acting. That's where the most power of hope lies. Goodbye, and thank you for watching this live.
Thank you.